ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar, 7 p.m. in Lagos. Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. This is Newslink. Here are the top stories. A court in Benin set May 26 for a final ruling in the trial of cyber activist Steve Amosu. Political debate intensifies among citizens in Côte d'Ivoire ahead of the October presidential election.
It is important that candidates who are heavyweights in Ivorian politics, who are already declared, be allowed to compete for the good of Côte d'Ivoire so that we do not return to what happened.
Ghanaian authorities order all foreigners to exit the country's gold trading market by the end of April 2025, and in Chad, President Debi Itno dismisses 9 military officers due to serious misconduct. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to our listeners within the sub-region and beyond. This edition opens in Benin, where the verdict for the trial of cyber activist Steve Amosu is scheduled to be announced on May 26 this year. The prosecutor at the Court for the Repression of Economic Offences and Terrorism (CREAT) has requested a 2-year prison sentence for him. Amosu has been in court for several months, facing charges of inciting rebellion and electronic harassment. Authorities suspect that he is behind an online account that is highly critical of Beninese President Patrice Talon and his government. Augustine Kole reports.
On Monday, April 14, the prosecutor requested a 2-year prison sentence for cyber activist Steve Amosu and a fine of 1 million CFA francs for cyber stalking and incitement to rebellion. The prosecution has no doubt that cyber activist Amosu is behind the Ferronvi online account, which is highly critical of Patrice Talon's regime. According to the prosecutor, the accused admitted doing the preliminary investigation before denying everything at the start of the trial. The prosecution continues that since Steve Amosu's arrest, account Ferronvi has ceased to be active. The critical columns of the Beninese regime have automatically stopped. However, the cyber activist lawyers accuse the prosecution of seeking to convict Steve Amosu without concrete evidence. According to Mr. Baba Rape, the prosecutor developed this theory throughout the trial without ever providing any concrete evidence. The defense lawyers are therefore arguing for their client's outright acquittal. The court has scheduled its verdict for May 26 this year. As a reminder, Steve Amosu was kidnapped in neighboring Togo, where he lived, and was taken to Benin in 2024.
A report filed in by Augustine Kole. Elsewhere, the Plateau State government in Nigeria carried out a mass burial today for over 50 victims of Monday's deadly attack in the Ziki community. President Bola Tinubu has expressed profound sorrow over the recent bloodshed in Plateau State, which also resulted in the destruction of several homes. In a statement, the president strongly condemned the violence and extended his sympathy to the bereaved families. The incident occurred in the Ziki community within the Bassa local government area of the state. According to residents, the assailants invaded the village in the early hours of Monday, indiscriminately firing at residents who were trying to escape the gunfire. Rewantin Wong, a journalist in Plateau State, explains the details of the attack and the condition of the affected residents.
Visiting such community, it was something that one couldn't hold back his tears, because women and children were killed, macheted, some with bullet wounds and gunshots. Some are currently even in the hospital at the moment, and houses were burned into ashes, properties destroyed. The people, some run into bushes and were killed even in the bushes. So it suggests that the attack didn't last for probably 30 minutes. But it's quite unfortunate that the villagers will still complain that there wasn't any intervention until after the attack. Though I spoke with one of the leaders in that community, and he said for his people, they can't go into IDP camps. That's their tradition. They said they forbid anybody taking shelter somewhere. They can only go into relatives' houses. But that fear is still there. There's tension everywhere in Bassa local government at the moment. But one thing that I would like to give as my own opinion, over the years when it's farming season, most times you begin to witness this kind of issues until even harvest season.
Rewantan Wong, a journalist in Plateau State. Meanwhile, the community leader of ZK, Davidson Mallison, gives an eyewitness account of the incident in brief.
They started shooting, they burnt houses, they macheted people, and as I speak, we have recovered about 51 dead bodies on ground, and then we are still searching. I will not say that is the end, but we are still searching on other corpses around the bushes, and that is the situation of what happened.
More on security issues still in Nigeria. The governor of Borno State in the northeastern region, Professor Babagana Umar Zulum, has reaffirmed his government's commitment to eradicating the remaining elements of Boko Haram from the state following a deadly explosion along the Maiduguri-Dambuwa road. The incident, which occurred last weekend, was caused by improvised explosive device IED planted by suspected insurgents, resulting in the death of at least 8 people. Usman Umar reports.
During a visit to the injured victims receiving treatment at a hospital in Maiduguri, Governor Zulum condemned the attack and urged security forces to intensify their operations and increase their presence in vulnerable areas where insurgents are still believed to be operating.
IED explosion between Maiduguri and Dambuwa Road, but unfortunately the road was closed for about 1 month, and I believe this is one of the reasons why insurgents have decided to come and plant IEDs because of lack of vehicular movement along the road. But I want to advise the communities to be resilient enough. I want to advise the Nigerian army to be resilient enough, and then we shall strengthen the resilience of the community. But we shall ensure that movement from Maiduguri to Dambuwa should continue. This will not deter us from following the road. I urge the Nigerian military and all other security agencies to beef up security along the road so that such incidents will not happen again.
Borno State has witnessed resurgence of insurgent activities since January 2025. Notable incidents include the January 24 attack on the Malamfatori military base, where over 20 soldiers were killed. 2 days later, a suicide bombing in the same area resulted in the death of 27 Nigerian troops. Additionally, coordinated assault on the military base in Wajiroko and Wulgo in March led to further casualties, reinforcing the militants' renewed capabilities. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Remember, we stream live on wadr.org. The Ghanaian government has ordered all foreigners to exit its gold trading market by the end of April 2025. This decision aims to streamline gold purchases from small-scale miners, increase national earnings, and reduce smuggling activities. In a statement dated April 14, 2025, the authorities announced that all licenses previously issued by the Precious Minerals Marketing Company (PPMC) and the Minister of Mines, with the exception of those held by major mining companies, are now null and void. As part of the measure, their mining licenses are invalid and they will no longer be able to operate beyond April 30, 2025. The national company, Gold Bold, will take complete control of the market and establish new regulations. This measure, viewed as radical by some in the industry, aligns with the new law regarding the Ghana Gold Board Law 1140, which was adopted on March 29 this year. Let's turn our attention now to the humanitarian situation in the Central Sahel region, particularly Mali, where hundreds of Burkinabe refugees are seeking shelter in the town of Koro, located in the Bandiagara region, is raising concerns. These individuals have been forced to flee their homes due to attacks by armed terrorist groups. As more refugees continue to arrive since last week, the humanitarian situation has become alarming. Local authorities are requesting assistance to help provide support for the displaced people. Francis Boniface has the details.
These refugees, mostly women and children, were forced to abandon their homes in Burkina Faso after attacks by armed terrorist groups to seek refuge in the Malian town of Koro. Some arrived, leaving all their belongings behind.
We were chased away. We feel deserted. We have no food. There are no tablecloths. There are other hands that cannot send us home. Our child left without a home. We left with nothing.
As the city continues to welcome Burkinabe refugees, local authorities are struggling to contain the number of displaced people. The one of the precarious humanitarian situation of these refugees, Issa Sagara is the first deputy mayor of Koro.
In 2 days, we evacuated 500 people. Many are in the streets and in the city, but we can't contain all the refugees. The urgent need is first of all food assistance. We left without taking anything. We don't have any new housing for them. It's a cry for help from the state and partners.
However, initiatives are developing to provide humanitarian assistance to these Burkinabe refugees. Sidi Mahaman Jakite is the head of the National Commission for Refugees at the Koro office.
Our role, first of all, is to conduct a pre-arrest assessment in order to provide legal assistance. We need to obtain the refugee certificate or the refugee card, which is not yet available here in Koro. And now we are going to conduct a multi-sectoral assessment with partners to identify the needs of these people who have arrived. After identifying the needs, that is when assistance can come. Of course, with the agreement and documents from the CFC.
According to Médecins Sans Frontières, since July 2024, the city of Koro has welcomed around 82,000 Burkinabe refugees.
Francis Boniface with that report filed in by WADR's Bamako correspondent Aliyu Cham. In Niger, 2 foreign nationals have been kidnapped in less than 3 months. The most recent incident occurred on Sunday evening, April 13, when a Swiss citizen was abducted by armed men in the Agadez region of northern Niger. This latest abduction follows the earlier kidnapping of an Austrian woman in the same region in January this year. Moradet reports.
The governor of the Agadez region, Brigadier General Ibra Bulima Isa, confirmed the abduction of a woman with both Swiss and Nigerian nationalities. She was taken from her home by armed men on Sunday evening, April 13. According to local media outlet Air Info, the woman had been living in Agadez for several years after previously residing in Algeria, where she worked in the tourism sector. The Swiss citizen, who was born in Lebanon, is married to a Nigerian, established an association in Agadez to support local artisans. The Swiss Ministry of Foreign Affairs expressed concern regarding the abduction and announced via X on Monday that Swiss representation in Niamey is in contact with local authorities. It is worth noting that on January 11 of this year, a 73-year-old Austrian woman was also kidnapped by armed men in Agadez. She had been living in the region for 28 years, during which time she led various projects focused on education, health, and women's empowerment. Nigeria has been experiencing insecurity and repeated attacks by non-state armed groups since the coup in July 2023 that overthrew President Mohamed Bazoum. Some of these attacks are linked to jihadist groups including Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State.
A Moradet reports in there. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. A court in Benin set May 26 for a final ruling in the trial of cyber activist Steve Amosu. Ghanaian authorities order all foreigners to exit the country's gold trading market by the end of April 2025. Still ahead in the news, a political debate intensifies among citizens in Côte d'Ivoire ahead of the October 2025 presidential election. And in Chad, President Deby Itno dismisses 9 military officers due to serious misconduct. We also have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for staying with us. Into some political matters in Côte d'Ivoire, the political climate is intensifying as the October 2025 presidential election approaches. Debate among the public are increasing regarding the participation of certain declared candidates whose names are still not on the electoral list for the election. Affected by the trauma of the 2011 political military crisis, many Ivorians are now advocating for the establishment of an inclusive dialogue, while others are urging strict adherence to existing laws. Christopher Ticho tells us more.
On the streets of Abidjan, political debate is at the heart of discussions as political tensions continue to rise. 6 months ahead of the presidential election, several opponents who cannot be candidates because of their conviction by the Ivorian justice system, which they contest, are beginning to call on their supporters to mobilize. With the memory of the deadly political crisis still fresh in people's minds, many are calling for dialogue between political actors for a peaceful election and to preserve national stability.
It is important that candidates who are heavyweights in Ivorian politics, who are already declared, be allowed to compete for the good of Cote d'Ivoire, for the good of democracy itself. The debate must absolutely be opened. Whether the elected official is registered or not, I would like everyone to be allowed to run. It will be a peace for Cote d'Ivoire, so that we do not return to what happened.
While the ineligibility of several opponents who are calling for mobilization is due to their conviction by the Ivorian justice system, other citizens are calling for respect for the country's laws.
They deserve to go to the elections, but when they don't deserve something either, well, he told me that we sit down and don't force it.
There was a time when it was he himself who was in power. There were others who didn't deserve to be there. But when they were told that they weren't here, the electoralists, they didn't take that to make a fuse.
6 months ahead of the presidential election, Ivorians as a whole are hoping for a transparent and violence-free election.
Christopher Ticho with that report filed in by WADR's Abidjan correspondent Marcel Aristo. Away from the sub-region, Chadian President Mohamed Idriss Déby Itno has dismissed 9 officers from the National Army, including a general. According to the government, these dismissals are due to serious misconduct and mark the 3rd wave of such actions within just 5 days. This follows similar dismissals made by the Chadian leader on April 9th and 11th. Sankule Janko reports.
The Chadian Minister of Defense issued 2 new presidential decrees on Monday, ordering the expulsion of 9 officers, which include both generals and junior officers. It cited serious misconduct as the reason for these dismissals, but did not provide specific details regarding the incident. Among those dismissed was Army General Abdurrahim Bahar Muhammad Itno, who is the president's first cousin, and reports suggest he may have had rebellious intentions. Additionally, 2nd Lieutenant Jibrin Tijani Abbas was demoted and dismissed for similar reasons. The escalation of these sanctions is part of Chad's efforts to tighten control over its defense and security forces, particularly in light of a volatile security environment. In response to threats from the Sudanese Army's second-in-command, N'Djamena has ordered a physical census of its troops, declaring that absentees will now be considered deserters. Furthermore, authorities have prohibited soldiers from expressing opinions on social media and holding multiple positions, labeling these actions as necessary to restore discipline within the military ranks. Since assuming power in April 2021, Mohamed Idriss Déby Itno has vowed to reform an army that has often been criticized for its clanist tendencies. This ongoing wave of dismissals indicates a significant hardening of the government's stance towards its military leadership.
Sankule Janko reporting there.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Our guest this evening focuses on the security situation in Nigeria, where another deadly attack has resulted in the deaths of at least 51 people and destruction of several homes in Plateau State, north-central Nigeria. The incident occurred on Monday in the Ziki community located in the Basa local government area of the state. Dr. Maji Peters, the security and public policy analyst.
Well, I think in Plateau, let's just talk generally. There have been series of violence that has been occurring from what happened in Bokos, stretching it to the number of deaths recorded to what is happening in Miango. And so to cut it short is that there were violent attacks in those communities and there are scores of deaths recorded. And for a very long time since the new governor came in, we felt that thing has become part of the history of the state because nothing has happened. But unfortunately, I don't know what happened and where it went wrong. It's like they were just warming up for these massive attacks, and it has really, really been devastating. It's really heartbreaking to see this kind of violence happening in this time, with all the efforts that people are putting on, with all the work that civil society groups and peace-building organizations are doing. And I know that Plateau State have a peace-building agency, and they've been on the ground doing a lot of works in communities. So it's important for people now to sit down and do a security impact assessment.
So like you rightly said, I mean, there's been series of attacks. In fact, within the past week or so, we've seen about a couple of attacks in the Plateau State. What are the security apparatus doing about this? Are they not alert enough to perhaps prevent some of these deadly attacks?
Well, the security, when they are alerted, they come. Sometimes they come too late. Sometimes they are not able to have access. So I wouldn't speak for them, but we're all disappointed, and we just feel like they could do more and they could do better. We just felt like there should be adequate safety and security for people in community, especially when the state has a chief security officer in the person of the governor, when the local government have a chief security officer in the person of the local government chairman. We just felt that lives and property of people should be more secured and people should feel safer within the confines of the state where they dwell. And this thing should not be happening again. It's really heartbreaking. It's really painful. It's really annoying.
According to reports, these are armed bandits. But what more can you tell us about these attackers? Are they terrorist groups or they're just bandits causing terror among people in a Plateau State?
I think there is different perception to who they are. The victims will tell you this is an attack on them. The government will tell you this is a clash. Security people will say it is a clash or it is a violent conflict and things like that. So you see, the perspective of interpretation depends on the perception and how you are involved with it. For the victims, they are being terrorized. So you could realize that if you look at the headlines, it comes from unknown gunmen to armed bandits to terrorist groups. So irrespective of what is happening, this is an act of terror. Whether we call them armed bandits, we call them bandits, we call them unknown gunmen, this is acts of terror and people are being terrorized. So this is pure, plain terrorism.
What is the mood like in the Plateau State, particularly local government areas where these incidents occurred?
In the local governments where it's affected, I mean, you could tell that everybody's mourning, irrespective of who it is. You know, it's so annoying and so scary when you live in a place like that. It's not that it didn't happen to me. It's the fear of I could be next. And it's a very terrible thing to feel. So people are grieving. And you could tell that there is absolute sadness and mourning. And apart from them, even neighboring communities are jittery and scared because they could be next. So I think government need to do more. People need to be more aware. And we expect that government should now learn to be proactive, not reactive.
Dr. Maji Peters is a security and public policy analyst. Up next for updates in the sporting world is Sankle Janko.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us as excitement builds up ahead of the much anticipated CAF African Schools Football Championship Continental Finals in Ghana. CAF has confirmed African legends Asamoah Gyan and Clementine Toure as assistants for the official draw on Monday, 21 April at the multi-choice office in Accra. The CAF African School Football Championship Ghana 2025 will take place in Accra between 23 and 26 April. Ghana's Gyan and Toure from Cote d'Ivoire will be handed the responsibility of assisting with the draw of the third edition of Africa's largest schools football competition, Continental Finals. Elsewhere, host Morocco will take on Cote d'Ivoire in the second semi-final CAF Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations at the El Bashir Stadium in Mohammedia on Tuesday. This is the second meeting between Morocco and Cote d'Ivoire at the CAF Under-17 AFCON level. Their previous clash was also at the semi-final stage with Morocco as host in 2013. Cote d'Ivoire won that game 2-1. And in the UEFA Champions League tonight, Aston Villa will hope to bounce back from their 3-1 defeat to PSG as they welcome the French champions in Villa Park. Elsewhere, Borussia Dortmund will welcome Barcelona, who won 4-0 in the first leg in Catalonia. That's it for sports. It's back to you.
Sports is brought to you by Sankule Janko. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Maojo Juve, Mam Kodo Njaifai, and Umu Daniogo for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, the X, Instagram at WADR English, on Facebook, WADR English Service, and stream live on WADR.org. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia.